Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Euphoria, Season 1, Episode 4. I will immediately just say right off the bat for this episode, honestly, I was kind of bored for this episode. Really, there was, for me, just when we get to that Ali and Rue thing of dialogue, I'm like, why does this even exist? Why am I watching this? Like, I am just going through this dialogue, and that's when you get the wah 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 wah, the Charlie Brown all over again. Where it's like wah wah wah, yeah, I definitely agree with wah 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 wah, because Rue like can't put together a sentence in here, and Ali is trying to figure out like, hey, stop wasting my time, figure out like what the heck you're trying to tell me, figure out why we're here, and then I can figure out a way to mentor you and help you, and then I can let you go on and do your carnival today. Because we have a theme of everybody going to this carnival at the exact same day. So we also have a story, of course, for today that is covered by Jules. So we get Jules' backstory, which I'm sure will just stick into this one episode and don't go anywhere else. So, like, here's the thing. So, like, say, perfect example. So, you have one focused episode of a character, but that thing does not go from previous episode or future episode of character. So, what is the point of the backstory of a character? I'm confused. You could probably go on and not have that backstory, and it would make no difference. Like, it just feels like we go on and realize that these stories that they focus on certain characters are honestly kind of a waste. Like, we don't find any real, thing out of their backstory that is to make this person help us invest in them more now or in future episodes, because they kind of whatever they build up for that one episode, it's gone within the next one. It's quickly gone. So with that said, yeah, this episode was just kind of yeah, it was just like very just flat, like, because of course we have no shock value here, so there is no value in this episode. Because there's no story, there's no real story overall. Like, I think the only thing that was interesting about this episode was the Jules backstory, and then that, after that, like, this episode was basically dead after that. Simply because when they go into current time, there's just a bunch of stuff that just feels like it's going nowhere. I guess one thing that I can rebuttal from the last from one of the past episodes, Maddie was to go on and go through this cell phone, and I naturally assumed it was her own, but I guess instead we find out that Nate is to have a cell phone full of D pics. So we're really just having Maddie, who is to just kind of start asking around about people. Like, Maddie is kind of telling this to everybody and their brother about what's going on with Nate. But then Nate is kind of going and turning around and like telling Natty to kind of keep certain things like to herself, and so like I doubt she's gonna keep things to herself. I just think that the Pandora's box is open, and so now Maddie is to just go on, and I think she's gonna just be spouting off to everybody. So Ashtray and Fezco are basically pointless characters now because I guess Rue is not getting her drugs from them. So basically, you just kind of see them a tiny bit here in this episode, and then they seemingly don't exist. So man, is that great? Uh, just man, just hey, these give them some camera time, but what are they gonna do? Nothing. Um, for this episode, like pretty much the whole entire cast. So with that said, let's just go into spoilers. Let's just go ahead and break this down. So let's go and I think we're gonna have to go into the meatier things into this episode, the bigger stuff, and then we'll go on until it becomes stuff that is to be less and less important. Because we're gonna get there. There's going to be a bunch of that's less and less important. So let's go into it. Let's go to that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this movie or this show, this episode. You know, like it's because the one thing that I want to say is I didn't really like the whole shock value part of the show. But then I realized when it's gone how much it's just like, well, when there's shock value there, at least there's content there. At least it feels like there's something on the show that seems interesting. When that's gone, all of a sudden there's just like, it's like a deflated show. They don't know what to do. And I'm just so like godsmacked and baffled how the show like really has nothing to really offer its audience besides just a T or D or whatever in between, so to speak. Because I'm like, come on, show. Like, it's a teen show. Like, it should be easy enough to write. How many billion teen shows has there been? So, with that said, let's just go into spoilers. So, we go on and have Jules, who is to have a backstory here, and so we go on and have Jules, who is to have her mother go on and take her to this therapist, who, of course, is to be a guy who is to be named Dr. Goodwin. So we go on and we, of course, have Jules, who's looking at some picture, and she starts talking about it. And so Dr. Goodwin's like, well, do you want me to take down the picture? And she's like, no, I think I can like it. So all of a sudden, Jules is consistently talking to this Dr. Goodwin. And so all of a sudden, that leads to Dr. Goodwin wanting to go on and taking Jules to this facility and kind of showing her a tour. And so Jules doesn't even realize there's a reason why she's going into this place, that she's being shown all these people. And we have one point had this guy named Jess who is going on and basically being this very angry guy who has to get tackled down to the ground and then put into this kind of room where he is to basically take a timeout or a equivalent to timeout. And the more and more that he is to be angry, the more and more this woman is just like, well, you get 30 minutes in your room. And so the guy just spits into the glass part of this door, and like he doesn't care. So we go on and we have Jules, who's very naive, kind of doing this whole tour. And it's like, I'm sorry, if you're going to go and have somebody go on a tour for something, there's a reason why you're doing that. But Jules doesn't connect the dots here. All of a sudden realizing that her mother is to admit her into this place. So when Jules finally has the dang Fraser done thought process of like, oh my god, she's going to get stuck here. Because Jules is going on and telling this doctor, you know what? I think I want to leave. Like, I don't think I want to be here anymore. I don't think these people are all that good and nice and whatever, so I think I'm going to be bouncing. And so we have Jules who's thinking about leaving, but all of a sudden she's been admitted by her own mother. And so Jules is to now be very upset about this, to the point of, I guess, her scratching other people. So they end up going on and putting mittens, these horrible mittens, on Jules. And so we have her go into this circle of this kind of like therapy session, this group therapy. And so Jules is going on and saying like, well, like maybe these mittens will go on and help me help me in one way, if I guess this place is to help me. So we go on here and we have Jules who she is to go and I guess seek therapy, and maybe that eventually just goes on and goes really bumkiss nowhere. And so it seems that at one point Jules's mother had gotten sick, and so it seemed that Jules's father, who is actually to be a guy named David. Oh my god. I guessed. God, I'm good at guessing for some bizarre reason. So David goes on and takes Jules home, and we have it to where they're both just kind of watching movies and just enjoying one another's company for whatever reason. So really, that's just the end of that story for the hey guys, let's see the backstory of Jules. Where did that go? Nowhere. But we at one point had young Jules going on, and we had this orderly going and giving her lunch, and Jules goes on and is to ask this orderly to keep the pop can there so she can finish the rest of it. And so Jules goes on and takes this pop can and rips it in half and then slices her arms, and then is to go and tell this orderly guy, hey, I did something wrong. I did something bad by accident or whatever. And so this orderly goes and tackles Jules down, and I'm sure just kind of they take her and they kind of take care of her. So but now, like, we end up showing little flashes of Rue going and taking care of Jules and sleeping next to her in a bed, and we kind of consistently see that pattern later on in the episode. So we of course now have Rue, who is talking to Lee at this diner, and I think Rue just needs to like talk to somebody, but it doesn't seem like real rational English words are actually coming out at this point. We have Rue who's going on, and it like the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, because I'm not going to waste that time going into the gibberish that Rue goes on and says. We have the meat and potatoes of it all, that Rue was to misjudge the whole situation with Jules, and that Rue would go on and kiss Jules, and figure that like all of that would be like that Jules would love Rue and kiss her, and they would be lovers, and it would all work out. But like Ali is just like, well, do you think like you possibly like getting with this girl and probably like pushing as hard as you are is just because like you like the feeling, kind of like drugs? How like you really like doing drugs because you like the feeling, and so you're basically like substituting drugs that you cannot have for this girl that you can have, and you're trying to get that same kind of feeling from this girl as you were from these drugs that you can no longer have now. So you're basically just substituting uh, one thing for another. And Rue is to realize that, like, so now with that said, that's the big, massive, juicy story that comes out of this. Because now we go into Carnival, where everybody is just off doing whatever they're doing in this one. So, because we do have technically another bigger story that still relates to Jules, but it is what it is. So, now we're at this carnival, and now we're gonna have a bunch of tangents of all stuff that everybody does in this episode. So let's quickly cover the cat stuff, because that's easy. So, Cat goes to this carnival, and of course she is to meet up with Ethan. And it seems like Cat and Ethan, it seems that there's some potential there for them to kind of just be a relationship at some point. And so Kat is at first going and having fun with Jules at some of these rides, but then she goes and finds Ethan, and so her and Ethan start having fun on some of these rides, and so Kat goes on and is to go and get these like slushies. It looks like they're ices. And so Ethan's like, well, hey, like maybe we can go on and get really drunk and then go on one of these rides and maybe get sick or maybe just be really drunk. It'll be fun. So we go on and all of a sudden have Kat going and getting these slushies to return, seeing Ethan talking to uh, some blonde girl who is like seemingly a little bit like different than Kat, and different because like she's a blonde, Kat's black haired, and so on and so forth. So immediately we just have it to where Kat is possibly thinking that Ethan is just possibly shopping around, or really Ethan is to go on and like maybe he's kind of working these ladies, maybe he's going on and gigoloing it around, you know what I mean, American gigoloing it around. He's going on and he's just wanting any slice of pie, so to speak. Anyone that works the quickest, I guess that might be the one that he goes for, but we find out that that's not the truth. We find out that Ethan is talking to this girl, and she wants her shift covered by some person that it isn't Ethan. I think it's Ethan's sister. And so this girl wants nothing to do with Ethan. She just wants her shift covered. And so Ethan's like, sure, uh-huh. So Kat all of a sudden is dropping these slushies, and she runs off because, like, oh, I thought Ethan was the one. Hoo hoo hoo. So Ethan is to just kind of go and is looking for Kat. It's like, where'd she go? Like, I thought she was the one. Kat goes off and is to find another guy, who is to be a guy, I believe, who is named Luke. So we, of course, have Kat find Luke, who I think is some carny. He has this bandana. And so we have Kat going and saying, or going and talking to Luke and saying that I guess this guy had some reputation about him going and just banging any chick. And so we have Kat, who's really just tempted to just get with this guy because he has had a reputation with getting with a lot of women. I'm like, well, your cat, like, man, like, I have a fear here that Cat is gonna be walking away with cat scratch fever, if you know what I mean. Like, she's gonna go on and catch something from somebody, and that's gonna be on her because we probably have this guy who is to be this carny where he's just gonna go on and leave this town and never see Cat again. So, but yeah, so we of course have it where Luke is to ask Kat if she, of course, was satisfied, and Kat was to say no, and then she walks off. So that's really the end of the Cat chapter of things, and I'm like, man, that was so much nothing. There was so much nothing there. Uh Anyways, we push on. So let's cover the exciting Cassie and Chris story. So we go on and we have Cassie and Chris. So Chris is to go on and meet with Nate and Nate's father Cal, and he's going on eating their chili because evidently Cal is to be uh, winning some contest of being the best chili because he does that every single year. And again, this year is going to be his year. So Chris is going on and talking to Cal and Nate, and Cal is mentioning to Chris, it's like, well, hey, like, I'm not really seeing you on the field. Like, what's going on? And so Chris is saying that he's a freshman and that he has to pay his dues. And Cal is going on and saying, it's like, well, like, it feels like you're just being, like, lazy. Like, come on. Like, so Cal is saying, it's like, well, hey, like, why do you think that I have the best uh, chili out of all these chilies? Why do you think I have the job that I do? Why do you think that I have the life that I have? Like, everything has to be, like, the best, or, like, everything has to be the way it is. It's like, always strive to be better. And so we go on and we have Cassie who walks over, and so Chris introduces Cassie as just someone that he's kind of cool with, or that they aren't actually boyfriend girlfriend, that they're just kind of like, they're still like, he friend zoned her. And then Cassie's like, I'm sorry, like, I would have made the joke of like weren't weren't I trying to get you inside me? That's what Cassie should say. But anyways, that would have been the joke here. But so Cassie is to pull Chris off to the side and say, "Excuse me, but like, didn't I tell you that I loved you the night before? And doesn't that mean anything now?" And so Chris is just saying, well, like, I just didn't want to tell these guys that we were together because, like, I would have, like, just heard all kinds of crap from Cal. And because Chris is going on and saying that Cassie is to have uh, a certain kind of history, and she's kind of been labeled a certain kind of thing to a lot of people, and Cassie should know what that label is at this point. So we have it to where Cassie is just like, you know what, I'm sick of this. So Cassie goes off and she is to go on and find Maddie, who is also to be upset because Maddie is to go and meet up with Nate, and Nate is saying that Maddie is to look like a hooker, so she should go home and change to look more like a human being. And so Maddie gets really upset with that, and so of course, her and Cassie kind of meet up in this hall of mirrors, and they're bizarrely talking about the reflection of both of them. And at some point, they can go and find the mirrorverse version of them that is to be the most uh, what is the perfect word here? That doesn't sound like a cuss word. They should go on and find the more like meaner version of themselves, I guess. The more like I won't take from nobody version of themselves, the more confident version of themselves. So we go on and we have these girls who are to supposedly find that version of themselves as Cassie's going on this carousel, and she is basically acting like she is to be a, let's just say it seems like she's acting like a girl on a pole, so to speak, and she is like really going on and having all eyes being on her, to have all these guys just gawking at her like like yeah, like this girl is just like getting off. And so we go on and have Cassie, who's to tell Maddie when she meets back up with her that there must have been something in that Molly that was really strong. So because we have all these eyes on Cassie, and we have Daniel, who's to be the one going on next to Cassie in this carousel, and like this girl is just getting off on just like rubbing against this freaking this horse like it owes her money. so so yeah, so we have Maddie who decides to go on uh and see that Cal is winning this award for sixth time in a row, best chili, and so on and so forth. And so we, of course, have Maddie going in and ruining all this by basically calling uh, Nate's mother CUNT, and is going on and saying that I guess since uh, she can't dress how she dresses in front of this family, and she's rattling off all this stuff about this family. And so Nate goes and he's had enough, so he pulls Maddie away, and he is to like choke her to the point of there being a marks left. So and then when Maddie is to see these marks, she starts to cry in the mirror when she goes home later on. So Nate is to finally to say to Maddie, it's like, you know what, we're freaking done. Like, I'm sick of you. And so Maddie goes and tells Nate about, like, well, hey, I saw your pictures, I saw your photos. And so Nate is like, oh my God, I'm sorry about what all I said, and I'm sorry about what I did, I'm sorry. And so Nate's saying that he's just really confused right now, and it seems that Maddie is Nate's shoulder to cry on, and so on and so forth. So Nate goes and is to kind of like talk to Maddie here. And so now let's go and let's cover some Rue and some Jules stuff. Let's cover more of that. So we go on and we have these guys go to the carnival like everybody else. Uh, Gia is to go along uh, with Rue here, and Gia eventually lands herself into some group that is smoking some weed, and when Rue is to go on and find Gia, we have it to where Rue is trying to get Gia away from this situation of these guys smoking weed. and they go on and they call Rue an addict. That are like, hey, don't get high on this too. Don't get addicted to this too. So Rue is to grab Gia and just kind of pull away from them, and that's kind of like the end of the story for Rue, where she kind of makes it back home. It seems like she's cleaning up her act, seemingly. Um, but we also have it where Rue and Jules are going on, and so Jules is telling Rue that Cal is, of course, the guy that she had effed before, and Rue is telling Cal who exact or Rue is telling Jules who Cal is and what he like how like he's a very popular guy for this town and so on and so forth. And so we now have Jules go over there and is to get a thing of chili, and we have this really awkward moment between both Cal and Jules here as Rue is kind of watching on also. So we have this like weird eye movement between all three of these people. And so we have Cal who accidentally drops the thing of chili right in front of Jules and is to go on and get her another one. And so after that moment, we go on and we have Cal going and meeting up with Jules and saying like, "Hey, like I know like you like found out who I really was, and that you like know who I am, and so on and so forth, yada yada yada. And it seems like your friend is to know who I am, blah 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 blah." So Cal is saying like, "I know that you can probably hurt me. I know that you can probably hurt my life and this and that, but like I really hope that you like don't want to do anything of that. That you don't want to like tell anybody like what we did and blah 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 blah." And so Jules goes on is like, "Yeah, like I'm not going to tell anybody anything. Like don't worry about it. Like and I and my friend won't say anything either." And so Cal's like, "Okay, great. Like great." Like so he starts walking off, and like yeah, cuz like I guess for Jules it's like if she would have probably said something, she would have said something right then and there, but she says nothing. So if anything, I think we have Nate's brother who's asking Nate who this girl is, and Nate just says she's some new girl in town that, or some new girl at his school. So we have, I think we have a text sent by Tyler to Jules saying, "Hey, you want to meet in 30?" And so Jules says yes. So we also had the one moment where, like, when Maddie and Nate were trying to meet up with one another, we had it to where Maddie was going and saying, like, what ride she was at. And Nate was like, "Well, which ride is that? There's so many carousels. Which one are you at?" And they had to go and, like, find one another. And I thought that that was hilarious because I'm like, yeah, when really looking at it, there's a lot of times when you would probably get confused of where to go for anywhere. Because I know, like, if you're to lose somebody at a freaking like say for example, like a state fair, like if you're gonna lose somebody at a state fair, that person is pretty much gone. Like you would have to really go through and search and find that person, or like hopefully that other person has a phone on them where you can kind of text them or call them. But luckily, there's a lot of times I've gotten lucky where I've been able to just find people uh, weirdly. So, because we end up having Rue who had to go and get her sister because she was on the graviton far too much, or gravitron, and but then Rue found Gia and she was smoking weed. So, anyways, so we go on and we have Nate meeting up with Jules, and so we have Jules, who is now just, her heart has now sunk because she realized that Nate, who was Tyler, has lied to her. And so Jules is telling Nate, it's like, well, I don't trust you. And Nate's like, well, yeah, well, I don't trust you either. And so all of a sudden, we have Nate that is going on this thing of like, well, yeah, like I really like talking to you, and like it was really good for us to just kind of like I would go to sleep to you, and I would wake up to you, and so we have it to where like what the heck is going on with Nate here, to where it seems that, is Nate blackmailing Jules? Like is Nate wanting to establish that Jules will not F up his life, or he will do the same thing to her, and so on and so forth. There was so much about this where uh, Nate was saying that Jules will be eventually registered as like an offender of sorts, and that he'll go on and kind of make sure that Jules goes on and is to either go into prison or any number of things because of the stuff that they had exchanged between the two of them. So yeah, like that was just, I was like, man, what? Nate was to go on and say all this stuff to basically say that Jules' life is basically ruined at this point. That she, like, her going on and just talking to this guy is to really just lead to Jules basically being metaphorically effed here. And so we're going to see how this whole thing between Nate and Jules plays out, as Nate is to basically kiss Jules here and is to just stick his finger or fingers in Jules's mouth. And so I'm like, man, like this is getting really like, this is really odd, and I'm just kind of like, is Nate gonna keep pushing Jules? Is like, was this Nate's way of just getting off, so to speak, about doing this to Jules? Like, that's like horrible. Like, you should have told her the truth all along. Um, but instead, it just seems like he was just doing this weird thing of just like wasting this girl's time to then just reveal himself. But like, I think, yeah, like he must just get weirdly off about this or something, because I can't think of a real rational reason why this guy was to do this, besides other than to just have this reveal of like, aha, like I played you. That's the only thing that I can think of this guy just getting his rocks off by doing that. Um, and how he just kind of kept pushing her or whatever, and just thinking that like he could continue to just like, considering she doesn't really have anybody. Uh, but so we go on and we just have Jules here that goes off to spend the night or sleep over at Rue's place. And so we all of a sudden just have Jules here that just starts like taking off all of her clothes and just has Rue like, hey, here's a shirt. And I'm like, okay, all right. So we go on, and so they're sleeping together, and so we just get a montage of them just sharing a bed with one another. And so, like, is Jules just going to end up with Rue? Because it seems like if she can't trust anybody else, she can still trust Rue. Like, what is the end goal here? Um, but yeah, so with that said, let me know what's your interpretation upon any of this stuff. And please try to do it in a nice, clean way. Because, yeah, when really looking at it, more than likely any number of things will get flagged by YouTube, and then like your comment won't show up for me. So I don't know, like maybe we just have Nate that's just this evil guy, and he is just mwahahaing. I don't know. Maybe that's just him. Maybe he's just like a sadist or something. Maybe he's just, I don't know. Maybe he just has. Maybe he just is. There's something wrong with him. Not quite sure. We'll figure that out in other episodes. So, also at the end of this episode, we just have both Maddie and Cassie who are crying just because I think that their like life isn't working out the way they wanted to. I don't know. There's a lot of just kind of having to piece puzzles together because heaven forbid they actually just effing say what any of this means. You could have your characters, since they should have lines, they could have this one thing telling us why they're sad, why they're crying. Uh, like have, instead of just Rue having inner dialogue here, have like being the narrator here, have everybody else have some narration. Why not? So that way we can understand their thoughts and what's really going on with them, instead of having to piece it together via our own selves. So with that said, I think that hopefully covers most of this episode. For me, yeah, like this one, man, I'm surprised I got 40 some odd minutes out of this, because I was like, man, I thought this was going to be like a 20-minute thing. But I guess since there's a lot of pieces and a lot of parts of this one, I guess that's what took so long, is that there's so many like people to cover in the show. Hence why you have a show like this, because like the show is an ensemble for a reason, because one, every single episode is to cover some character and their backstory, and then also the main reason for the mass number of cast is so that way they can eat up time, with kind of covering certain people in one fell swoop of one event. So that's kind of the classic ensemble way about going things for. So this show is kind of like any other ensemble kind of show, but it also has that other kind of thing that I guess is to be the only reason to watch this show. And but maybe they'll get better stories at some point. Maybe they're gonna go into a better way of doing things at some point, because there's a reason why there was 2 seasons of this show so far. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. So goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.